Today's workshop is on steps and burdens. More focus on burdens because we covered steps last time. We quickly cover steps. So, quick show of hands. How many of you were there for session one? On steps were there? Cool. No one else. Alright, so our whole very quickly was very simple. So, oftentimes the question that people ask is, how do I make a case, right? Like, how do I make a debate case? And the first question to ask is, before you even ask that, is what is the case? So, anyone wants to try? Sure, good.
Argument your
For your point of view?
yeah.
Okay, so that's close, but not exactly. Uh, so the way most people run cases when they start debating is they say, okay, so maybe I support some topic and I do like argument one, argument two, argument three, with some hopefully reasoning, and they hope that this will win them the people, right? But a case isn't just the arguments you run, but how these arguments are linked to each other. And so the sum of your arguments plus their links and how they interact with each other and make one cohesive block, that's your case. Right? Now this might seem very abstract. I'll try and make it more specific so you understand what I'm talking about. So the goal of it is to not run discrete arguments, but arguments that connect into each other like a jigsaw puzzle, and that hopefully leads to you having a strong wall. If you remember the wall example, into you building a strong wall that can tear down the opponent's wall and hopefully win the debate, right? So, what does this look like when you're debating, right? Let's talk about the motion I've been using before. This house regrets the glorification for the humanities of motherhood, right? So, before we start analyzing, let's look at the words, right? What we're talking about motherhood, which is the act of giving birth and raising children, but more specifically about the glorification of motherhood. THR is this house regress. What do you have to do in a regress motion? Do you remember? We've spoken about this before. What's your goal? Can someone try and answer? Don't remember? Yes. So that means, but more specifically, you have to imagine that if this is the current world, you have to imagine that the glorification of motherhood has existed since the beginning of time till the present. And what does a world in which this glorification never happens at the beginning of time look like? So if you're going to talk about by this alternate world, what's called the counterfactual, right? FKX only here. So counter meaning alternate and factual meaning world of fact or like a picture of a world, right? So what does this alternate world look like as government? And why is it better than the current world? What's called status quo, SQ, right? So as opposition talk about why you say first no, counterfactual won't look like what government is saying, it look like something else. And then why status quo is better than counterfactual. Are you all with me here? Any doubts? This is important stuff, very basics. More than enough, thank you. So people are clear about counterfactual is? So in PHR you defend why
And a canyon.
too small.
Keep checking on that. I'm not sure how long that recording lasts.
No issues. It's recording for now, but I'll check. So you got to prove as government why counterfactual world is better than status quo. With me? So let's talk about what a world in which motherhood has always been glorified. What does it look like? Like, can someone tell me a harm that would happen the moment you glorify motherhood? Fatherhood is no. Let's. Is that like a? Just remind me if it stops. Okay, so firstly, who does this motion affect the most? Right? Who are the stakeholders in this video? Sorry? Exactly. Perfect. So the stakeholders are the people who are most affected in the debate, the most part of the people. Right? Those are women in this case. What is the harm that happens? Just try and think of the most obvious harm.
It internalizes the belief that the only purpose in their life is to give birth and that they cannot concentrate on their career.
Perfect. That's lovely. So the harm is women choosing motherhood, right, over career. Right? So you have to do two things. In everything you say, do two things. Why is this true? Right? And even if it's true, why is it important? Why does it matter? Why should society care about it? Why should you care about it as an educator? All of that. So here's how you implement steps. You say that at the point in time where glorification happens, right? What happens between this glorification happening and leads to you finally getting this belief that motherhood is more important than marriage. Making sense? So glorification happens in society. What happens in between that leads you to essentially focusing on motherhood more than career, right? Let's go step by step. So what happens when glorification happens? What's the obvious, immediate consequence? Okay, no, before that. Wait, following it. Before that. What do you need to do before you start believing something? You need to
See if others are believing it.
almost, you're almost there.
See if it actually works.
No, you just need to see it. That's literally it. You need to hear and see it before you can even believe it. Right? If I don't tell you something, you can't believe it because you never even heard of it. So the first obvious step, this is very easy to prove, is to see and hear the glorification. Right? So I don't want to get deep into reasons, but you could give things like, for example, maybe you have media glorifying motherhood, right? In a good light. Or maybe your family and parents and all that stuff. From the time you're a small girl, talking about how motherhood is so great and your job as a woman is to be a mother, right? So you're seeing this narrative, right? Essentially, this is what's called a narrative. The society as a whole and also individuals believe and propagate this thing, right? So you see the narrative because it's present all around you, whether it be through family, through media, all of that. Now, what's the next step? You all said it before this. You believe it, right? So you believe in that. That's step number two. So this step one, which is seeing it, believing is step number three. Make sense? Are you with me? Now, why you likely to believe it? So again, I won't go deep into the reason because it is the reasons is today's workshop is words, but steps is just identifying the steps. So you believe it because maybe things like if you're hearing it as a kid from someone whom you respect, like your parents, you're likely to take their word as the word of God and believe what they're saying. And so your core values are shaped by it. Or maybe since media is so prevalent, or maybe your friends keep talking about it, you get constant exposure, and that like leads you to believe in it, right? So if you notice, seeing is very easy to prove. Believing is a bit tougher, right? Now the third step. Once you believe it, what's important to you getting done? You what? Exactly. Okay. Sam, you're a good crowd. Thank you. Yeah. So you have to already follow it, right? Now this is even tougher to believe, right? Because sure you may believe something, but why are you likely to choose it over something like it, right? So you could say things like, if I don't follow it, maybe my extended family shines me. Like maybe the moment I get married, they'll be like, when are you gonna have a kid? And you get social pressures to have a kid. Or if you don't have a kid, people look at you like you being someone who is not a good contributor to society because you as a woman are not fulfilling your duty as a woman and having kids, right? So then those pressures lead you to having maybe like a reason to now go and have a kid. Or maybe, for example, your husband forces you to have kids. Or maybe you, because you have internal beliefs, because you've been hearing this thing for so long, internally you feel guilty if you don't have kids, and so you want to have kids. So you can give multiple reasons, but the reasons don't matter in this part. I want you to focus on the steps. Sorry, what you have on it. What does it look like? It looks like you, for example, not focusing on your career because motherhood unfortunately takes time because you're pregnant for 9 months, you have to take care of your kid for 18 years, right? Or at least then till the time they're maybe 5, 10 years old, whatever. Right? So career goes down. Maybe another impact could be you have lesser friends, right? Or maybe you don't like spend enough time with your husband, and so your relationship weakens, so on and so forth. Right? So I just want you to prove why it's true, right? You've given multiple steps as to why from the glorification you get all the way to them making the certain choice. Are you all with me? This is important. Cool. Once you prove why it's true, then you prove why it's important. Why is like sacrificing your career bad? Again, you shouldn't assume it to be obvious. Prove to the edge why it's what does it actually matter. So what are the harms of you sacrificing your career?
Financially becomes
Absolutely. Right. You're financially independent, right?
suicide.
You lose self-worth because you derive meaning from your career, right? What else? Having best friends is bad because you only focus on your kids.
You don't have social
You
life.
don't have social life, right? Once your kids leave the home at 18 years old, you're all alone, right? Things like that. And that leaves you being sad, depressed, etc. etc. Right? So now you prove why it's true and why it's important. Just by so simple. You already have steps in your mind. I just have to tell you, I just have to ask you the questions and you got the steps. So in prep time, in the first 5 minutes, think to yourself, what are the steps that lead from me going from glorification all the way to me making a choice? And then fill in the steps. So these are what's called links. Think of it like a chain, right? So it's like a chain. They're all connected from one to the other. So you see, you believe, you act, and then you have the how. Now the issue is if you don't prove one link in the chain, then the bottom half of the chain falls, and you only have like one thing in the beginning. And so I cannot. So if I say that a certain harm is happening, but someone breaks, like if I don't prove this chain well, and someone is able to break it easily, then all these things fall apart, and your harm no longer stands in the debate, and you lose. Make sense? So they want to identify first what these chain links are, and then prove them well, right? So I all with me, all clear. So if this is clear, then let's go into what's called burdens, which is about how you prove these links, right? So here's again when you start debating, you realize that you know you realize that oh shucks, I don't know how to fill a 7 minute speech. And the reason usually is that you're not going deep. So wait, do you all want to like copy this before I was already done? Okay, cool. So you realize that I have 7 minutes. And they seem so much because most people can't keep a 7 minutes straight because it's not. And you're like, how do I fill this in? And then you become nervous and then you can't speak and so on and so forth. The reason for this usually is that if I say has this person, like, for example, the glorification of motherhood, I might take multiple reasons, like I don't have friends, I don't have a career, I don't have this, that, this. And I try and do a bit of each, and I end up proving everything a bit. So, meaning, for example, if I had that chain, which I showed you earlier, you may prove parts of the chain, but not all of it. And the moment you try and disprove the whole chain, you realize that 7 minutes isn't enough anymore, and you wish you had 10, 12, 15 minutes. And so the goal then, firstly, is to learn how to prove one chain very well. And then after you've mastered the art of proving one chain very well, then learning how to prove this one chain well fast so that you can fill in two chains in 7 minutes and so on and so forth. So that's the goal. Let's make it. So that make sense? So maybe if you're now in November and you practice maybe till say you practice for this week if you're not in BTech engineering first year, or maybe if you are, then you practice in like mid-December. And hopefully by the end of that, you get to like 7 minutes proving one word. Or maybe in January you do. And hopefully by March, you've got like both efficiency as well as effectiveness nailed down. And then when you go to your first tournament in February, March, you get what's called a novice break, hopefully, which is people who are starting out debating, going to like the qualifiers and being in the top 8 in the tournament. And I guarantee you, if you do this well, a novice break is fucked up because I didn't do it well and I still got a novice break. So the fact that you have this knowledge will significantly and drastically increase the chances of you performing well. So let's get into burdens. Give me one second. Any questions before I move on? Yeah. Yes. Next, you can like ask stupid questions. There's no issues. Like this is important, it's fundamental. Please ask questions if necessary. If you're shy about asking questions, let's like DM me later. All right. So here we go for this, right? So before I get to how to do burdens, something to understand. So there's something called linear flow, right? Right. So what does linear flow mean? Any guesses?
Reading the flow of your speech.
Exactly.
Go up,
Yep.
up, up.
Perfect. So it's about having a speech that goes from point A, like for example, the glorification, to point B in a clear, concise manner. Like prove what's necessary, but nothing extra. How do you identify what you need to prove through the steps? So then, if you know the steps, you don't have to prove anything extra. I don't have to prove then things like I won't spend more time saying proving why women see it or other random stuff. I just prove only what's necessary and I prove how A to B happens clearly, concisely, and efficiently and effectively. Right? So why do people suck at making arguments when they start debating? And even like maybe 2, 3 years. Number one, they often miss these steps, right? Because they aren't clear of what I need to prove. And so you just take a shotgun and you just prove random shit and you hope that something lands and it just buys an argument, which is what I did for a lot of my, so what most of my life did for a lot of time because we didn't have the structure in our mind. Secondly, if you don't have flow and adjudicator is listening, you don't know where your point is going. Like you start off with A, you go here to C, you then go to D, and finally you reach B. And it's so difficult to like follow you because you're like, what is he trying to say? And then it's becomes painful to listen, and they tune off. While your job may be listening, your job is to make the educator's job of listening easier, so they credit you more easily and give you the win. Right? Makes sense? And sometimes you waste time talking about meaningless details you don't need to prove, and it's hard to follow, so on and so forth. So the goal is to have very clear linear flow, and this is done in today's workshops, right? So give me a second. So the way you do this is essentially you identify the problem. In this case, for example, glorification of motherhood, right? We then talk about why does the problem happen, right? And you prove that the problem actually exists, right? So in this case, you remember seeing, believing, acting, so on and so forth, right? And then you fix the problem, right? So you do this by essentially targeting the root of the problem, right? So you say that women choose motherhood over career, right? So career less than motherhood, right? What is the root of the problem? The most usually tells you what the root is, which is glorification of motherhood. And then you find out the reasons and the mechanisms for each, which is them seeing it, believing it, acting on it, right? So then you have very clear ways to identify it. Now, what sometimes happens is, so there's two types of people who do this. People who are terrible at debating and people who are like God level at debating. They sometimes do, they'll say this is the problem, like for example, motherhood greater than career. And they find multiple reasons. One may be glorification, one may be something else. And then they give reasons for each, right? And then they all arrive at why all of this is bad. The issue is, if you try to do this, it's difficult to do because you have to like say all these things simultaneously, prove them all simultaneously, and then arrive at bad. And if you're listening, it's difficult to follow. And like, wait, he's saying so much like a web. How do I track him? And so it's a pain to do this. Ideally, unless you are someone like David Africa, who's like world number one, don't do this. Right? Just pick one clear reason, right? That that you can trace most of the problem to and clearly prove it, like we did in the steps example. Right? What does this look like? So let's make this a bit more interactive and let's actually solve a problem. So one second. So here's an example of what you shouldn't do. Right? If I say that one of my favorites, this house would legalize all drugs, right? And you say that the problem is this, that drug cartels are a problem in places like Mexico, right? And they do bad things. And so what are the roots of the problem? I would things like maybe they recruit people from prisons, right? They are violent and they maybe make a lot of money from drugs which are used in bad ways. So I identified lots of problems why these people are bad, right? And then I prove each of them. I can say that if I implement legalizing all drugs, people won't go to prison anymore. And so prison recruitment doesn't happen anymore. If I say that violence doesn't exist, you can say that because it's not illegal anymore, police won't target these guys, and so violence reduces. And then money is lesser because there's no black market anymore. But I have to prove each of them individually and get them, which is very painful. And others identify things like one thing, money, and do it very well, and you'll do it better. As you go on, you can identify more. But for the in the beginning, I'd suggest just sticking to one and proving it here. Right? So let's get into the actual math. You mean 10 seconds? Wait, firstly, are you all clear about this? Okay, sure. Okay. So here we go. Let's say that this is a motion that I had in IIT Bombay, which I think I was up. So let's try this above, which is this house as a dual income millennial middle class middle class millennial couple would choose any guesses?
Both sides.
Not to have kids. Yes. Make sense? So before we get into this, what are the important parts? Let's go word by word. This house means government, obviously. What does as mean? What kind of motion it is? Now, this means it's an actor-based motion. What are the implications of it being an actor-based motion?
The class populace the social. Which should benefit them in
Correct. So you're not arguing from the point of view of a neutral person. Huh?
So I told them what activities motions are. We haven't picked everything yet.
No issues. I'll do a motion art session like quickly one day.
We will work the Roman one.
I will. So normally, like, for example, if you do THBT, this was believes, right? I'm arguing from the point of view of a third person, where I say that. So if I was doing THBT, dual income middle class family should not have kids. You're leaving, huh? Capstone tomorrow. Oh, you're going Friday then. Alright, see you. So if I was doing PHBT, like dual income middle class families shouldn't have kids, I could make an argument that population of the world will reduce. But here I am in the shoes of the couple. Both govern not have to argue from the point of view of this couple. Which means that as a couple, I don't give a shit about whether the population reduces or not. I only care about myself and not about the world usually, because most people are selfish. So it's got an actor-based model. Secondly, it's dual income is important. What does this mean? Perfect, right? So both husband, wife, husband, husband are on middle class. What does this mean? Correct. But so you can go a bit further. You can talk about how what does the economy look like. So maybe you could talk about how maybe people's wages are reducing. Even the stock market is getting better, like real wages is reducing. Inflation is high. Car loans, home loans are difficult to pay off. All those things, right? Thirdly, millennial couple means that they are late 20s, early 30s, right? Approximately 1984, I think was millennials. Anyways, and finally, which is not have kids. That's simple. They make a choice not to have kids, right? So the motion exists where you are deciding should I have a kid or not have a kid and making a choice. So as girl, we have to argue they shouldn't have kids. As op, we have to argue they should have kids, right? So are we clear? So, excuse me. Here's how you implement steps and burdens. Right? So let's make a table. It's not going to be big enough. Have you written on the motion? Remember the motion. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Please stop me if you have doubts. And I'll take doubts immediately. Else, like if you don't stop me, write it down somewhere and I'll take it afterwards. Your choice. Good. So let's do. Right. This is over. Oh. Can you read what I wrote? Problem solution. Right. So let's pick the most obvious harm of having a kid.
more financial the kid.
Hello, what do you
This is my
Infant is that.
single challenge.
Ah, makes sense. So you are the proof that motion, that girl should win this motion. See?
I agree, bro. I still commit to it.
That's one. Very rare. Anyways. So less money, right? That's a very obvious impact. Do you agree?
Needs, emotional needs of the kid. You need to
But that's not difficult to prove. Why is that a bad thing? I can be like, by fulfilling the emotional needs, I'm getting fulfillment.
So you can say that
Money is much more tangible.
other things like friends, your friends will take away.
I'll prove to you by proving this. Will you do that as well? Cool. So money is a very simple. It obviously has some money the moment you have a kid, right? So what are the steps here? Try the same thing as the thousand regrets. Go face from others. What are the steps? Some have water, I'm not a water. Right? My hands are very choppy.
You can just hold it, doesn't it?
You can like.
Okay, let me hold.
Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, give me steps. Come on. Thank you so much.
Just hold it, really. I really don't mind.
Cool. So, you have less money, right? What are the steps? The moment motion exists, what's immediately going to happen? Okay, be obvious. Huh? What?
With respect to that,
Yeah, no,
so
so
we need an impact to start steps.
this is the impact that you have less money.
Impact.
Right? That's the harm that you have less money.
Spend
have
more time.
kids.
Why
You have-
less
You have kids, exactly.
have
Yes. Thank you so much. Lovely. Right? You have kids. That's literally the simplest thing, right? You have kids. Right? Secondly, what's the next step? Toward this. No, you're going into reasons. Don't give me reasons. You have kids. What about it? Reason plus money. General simple reason. What?
Lesser time to work.
That's again a reason.
So you're raising them.
Yes, but
You have
you
more
have kids.
loans.
Sorry?
You have more loans.
More loans. That's again a reason. But you have kids. What do you have to prove to that you have lesser money? Kids? Okay, give me reasons. Kids cost a lot. It's literally at least you're taking more loans, at least you're working lesser on this. Again, be simple. You're not overthinking a lot. Depending is very simple if you do this. Kids literally cost a fuck ton of money. Oh, I can't swear, so I shop my right? Forgive me. Kids cost a ton of money, right? Thirdly, what's the obvious argument of the run when you say that you lose money? That the kids will do something to you later. What will they do to you later?
Take care of it.
So you say that they cost a lot of money long term. Sorry?
You need cheaper kid. Because
You can partners imagine taking that one.
One day I'll kill both of you.
I mean, you should be careful.
Right? And then, so they cost money long term. And finally, they can't or won't support you later. Because that's obviously what off will say. Key no, even if you spend money now, they'll support you later, right? And finally, the conclusion, you have no money. It's just complex. Simple, right? So you're saying that in a world where you have kids, you have the kids obviously, because that's the motion. They cost a lot of money. You have to prove this obviously. They cost money long term. And once you finish supporting them, they won't support you back, even if they want to. And so because of that you don't have money. Right? Simple steps. Do you all agree? Fair? And do you think we're missing any steps? You think want any more steps? But please cover all the things now.
Is that like they won't support? It's not mandatory. Like some people can, some kids can.
Yeah, so none of this is mandatory. The only thing that's mandatory is you having kids. That's what happened for sure because the motion says that. Everything else is disprovable. And so your job is to give what I said earlier. You identify the root of the problem, and then you give reasons to prove why it's true. In this case, I have to prove to you why it costs a lot of money, why it'll happen long term, why they won't support you later, and then you finally prove they don't have money, right? So these are only identifying the steps. Burdens is you have it. So there, each of them is a burden you have to prove. What is a burden? Something you have to carry and do, right? Like a donkey carries a big load. It's a burden, right? So you are burdened to prove these things. This is your job to prove it. But if you do prove them well, and you prove each thing well, you prove finally then that the harm actually exists, and therefore it's true, and then why is it bad? And you prove why it's important, and hopefully then you will, right? So I will show you that just doing this one argument very well will probably win you the debate, right? So if, for example, PM and DPM work on proving this one argument, and then one can just use the one thing which they proved so well against everything else, and talk about why this is so important that any fulfillment you get from opposition doesn't matter. It's called weighing. But let's not go there. I'll do that maybe next week or next month. I wanted to focus on building a case very strongly. So, what does the world look like? What is your proposal as government in which you don't have kids? Right? What's the opposite? Number one, you
Okay.
Don't have.
no kids. Right? Very simple. Secondly,
Kids don't.
absolutely. Right. No expense. They don't cost a fat. Third,
No expense long term.
no expenses long term, right?
They will support you.
No, they can't because they don't exist. But the difference is you can save long.
You can support your
Yeah, support yourself, right? To save long term, support self, right? And finally, what's the impact? What's the effect? Impact is effect. More money. Very safe. Love. So now that you've done this, you have a clear idea of the steps you need to prove, the borders you need to prove, right? Now let's go and prove them. It's very simple. Again, you'll do it very easily, I promise you. But before we do that, you remember how in motherhood I said proving that they see it is easier than proving that they believe it. It's easier than proving that they act on it. They were all, excuse me so much, they were all different levels of provability. Some had to spend, like you can spend maybe a minute of proving that you see it, maybe 2-3 minutes on why they believe, and maybe 3-4 minutes on why they act on it. Right? So how do you identify them? The way to identify what you need to prove more is thinking, will opposition counter what I say? And is it like something which will definitely target? Will they target this way? Do you think opposition will target whether you have kids? No. So I'm going to mark a cross if they won't counter, a single line for if they will probably counter, and two for if they definitely counter. So obviously they won't counter you have kids because that's the motion. It's foolish to counter it. Will they counter kids costing or not?
No.
They won't. A little, right? I think they said that maybe
Make no sense. Countering.
you can counter. So maybe you could say that
How do you
Instead of doing too many expenses, you could lessen those expenses by changing an alternate which was not
possible. Or they could say like maybe the government will provide you money. Like in Western countries, they might like give you subsidies for having kids. Like maybe China, like the way they do right now, they want more population, so they might pay you money to have kids. And so there's lesser expenses to have kids. So they could possibly counter this, but it's not the strongest thing to counter. So one way. Will they counter long term? Huh? I don't know.
Yeah, because once you grow up, they might start earning, they might leave.
So right? Once you're maybe 14 years, maybe your parents sent you to some child labor camp.
Yes.
When you earn money. Right? Will they counter can't or won't support
yes,
it?
yes.
Absolutely, right? It's so obvious that it will counter this. Meaning you should spend a significant chunk of your case
Trying to
proving it, right? Okay. Will they counter lesser money?
If you prove that properly, then they can't.
But they must still counter it because you're trying to say it's true, right? You have to always counter the impact. So you definitely counter this. Right. But once you prove all this, this is usually obvious. Right? So in the solution of what you're proposing, in a world where there's no kids, what do you think they'll counter? Will they counter no kids? Obviously not. Will they counter no expenses?
yes.
What will they say?
Like that if you have kids, you could overspend on us.
I could maybe go out drinking with friends every day, right? Oh, again, I'm in a workshop on this. I could do fun stuff with friends every day, right? And that would like increase expenses because you would say that probably have more time because I don't want to spend time raising kids. I might feel more bored, so I might travel more, go with friends more, so on and so forth. Will they talk about saving long term? Will they counter it? They will.
Yeah.
Why?
But not end up spending.
You could, yeah. So I think maybe a bit, but not too much, right? Will they counter you being able to save money long term and support yourself in the future? I think again a bit similar to this, right? And then greater money. Not really, but you could say a bit again. It'd be like, yeah, sure, okay. If they counter all this, they'll obviously say that, yeah, you won't have greater money because you spend all the money, right? But the point is that this is where they're really focused then. So is this valid? I mean, have you understood what we're trying to do here? So our job now is to prove in our speeches by a certain problem exists because of having kids. And while the solution is by not having kids, you then solve that problem. Very simple, right? Not too difficult. Things you could have done on your own, right? You don't need someone to like do it for you. Now there's two ways to speak. Now that you've written those down in your notebook in your prep time, you can either talk about the problem fully first, then say, now what is a world of like in which you don't have kids? And then talk about this too. Which is a good way to start doing it. Sometimes I still lose concepts. But once you like get the hang of this, what you should be doing is say, okay, in our world we don't have kids. In this world, in our world we have this, in this world we don't have kids. What does having kids look like? They cost a ton, you then prove it, then talk about they don't cost a ton, and then you prove this. So you go step by step, it's like a zigzag. So this way, the ad is constantly saying this world, that world, that world, this world, and they must be comparing to the other head, and a very clear picture forms in their mind of what these two worlds look like and why one is better than the other. Right? Are you all with me? This might not be easy to do, but it should be what you're striving towards long term. Right? So keep this in your mind. It should be a picture that clearly that stays in your mind. So now Debating is about two this. It's about wait. Have you all taken this down?
Yeah.
As it is? 1 second, let's
So that. On this one, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Cool. What was the first step? That you don't have kids, right? That you that no kids. Let's not prove that. We just say that we don't have kids because it's the most just we don't. Right. Now, if I identify the problem, what is the second problem? Kids.
But it's not the problem.
Yeah, this is the problem. That
Problem is you have kids.
oh, sorry, my bad. Apologies. Thank you for calling me out. Right. So, what's the second thing? Kids
They're
cost.
expensive.
Fine, right? Kids
Expensive.
expensive. Love it. Right. Now, how do you prove kids are expensive? No, sir. Someone mentioned points earlier when they said you're giving me reasons. Now it's time to give me reasons. Right?
Education.
Education. Perfect.
Basic necessity.
No. You know, I'm not saying healthcare is wrong. I'm saying you said education exists. Why is it true? Why is education expensive? Go deep. Like, you're just brushing over it. You're saying education will cost money. Well, why? Tell me reasons, right? So give me a reason, Mr. Education. How does it cost so much money? Let's go step by step, right?
Private
So-
schools are expensive.
Sorry.
Private schools are expensive.
Yeah.
Government schools are.
So private schools, right? You're saying private schools. But obviously the obvious response is why I can go to government school.
They're not very.
Why will parents go to so now they're good, sure. Government school is bad. So what? Why do I care about them being bad? I should send my kid to school.
Because you should care about the quality of education the kids don't get.
Why?
Because that's going to affect his quality of living.
So you give me good reasons. Number one, you care about your kid, right? Why do you care about your kid? Because number one, you care about his quality of life because you hopefully love the kid. But even if you didn't, you hope that once they
They'll
tell so,
repay.
huh?
They'll
They'll
repay.
repay you, absolutely. So then again, you can go a bit more deeper. You can say that, see, why do you believe they'll repay? Why do you believe that a good education will give them a good job? So you can say that,
They're getting value money but they should.
no, if you say this, I think the stronger line to run is that people believe for some reason that a good education gives you a good job. And if they get a good job, they can then repay you. Whereas, I mean, you can the obvious like alternative is they can like not be educated but still make a lot of money through business startups, so on and so forth, right? But so you talk about how there's a narrative that good education leads to a job and a job leads to them repaying you. So you have both love plus greed, right? Or even if not consciously, subconsciously, leading to you giving send them to private schools. That's number one, right? Secondly, why else are they expensive?
The books like the resources for
Facilities, right? So things like books, co-curriculars, right? Maybe I want my kid to be like a rock star and send him for like guitar class, right? And you buy your guitar, some portion expensive, right? Or maybe you send them to dance, maybe you send them something else, right? The point is that you have a lot of co-curriculars, you have books, you have stationery, you have art, so on and so forth, which adds up to your expenses, right? Right? Now, something before I continue, note this. It's important to be illustrative when you speak. Again, you're not convincing a perfectly logical machine, you're convincing a human. And humans, unfortunately, care about things like speech, style, care about body language, care about visual imagery, right? So you have to play the ads, not play the game. Which means that when I'm talking, I should be as visual in my speech as possible. So, for example, I can say that here's why I care about private schools. I care about sending my kid to private schools because I have friends who also send their kids to private schools and they ask me where my kid is going to, and I want to look cool in front of them. I want to maintain my social status. And so, out of this pressure, I then send my kid to private school. When you talk about how private schools inherently are expensive places because because everyone there is rich, and so they have large playgrounds. They have expectations to maybe wear good clothes. They have expectations to come in a good car, and it means you need to spend money to maintain that image. So what I'm saying is putting a clear picture in your mind. So obviously this is all the logic, but by you painting a picture in each line of logic, you're making the arguments what's called sticky. So even if you're in PM, at the end of the debate, you're actually should remember what PM said because of how impactful and visual your arguments were. And so even if Op maybe ran a better case, because of you being so sticky, you'll remember what he said more and be like, no, they said this, I can't not give him the win, and you get the win. So play the edge, right? You got to win. Winning is the goal of it. And this is true of life as well. I'm not winning, I mean convincing people requires you being visual, which helps you win, but that's secondary. So I have to be here. So one thing could be, for example, that essentially 1 second. So yeah, as you said, they care a lot, they want social status, all that. Send them to private schools. Secondly, co-curriculars. What else? What else costs money in terms of education? Where are all of you studying right now? Higher education. Right? So college.
So what higher education is a long term.
It will, but also why is it expensive in the current? Why is college expensive even when you're a kid? What is a unique feature of college which is more than schools also? They're extremely prestigious, but also expensive, right? Because the goal is money. So remember, it's about money over there, right? They're so expensive, especially in the US, for example, or if you're doing management in PES or in BITS, where you have to spend multiple lakhs per year, or in the US, like multiple millions per year, or hundreds of thousands of dollars per year into paying this off. This means you're likely to start saving from the time your kid is a small toddler, right? Could probably like open an FD or a savings account and put money in it every month to save for that, which means you have to take away money from other places, right? So you are essentially taking money which you could have used to invest in your future and paying it off and putting it in like in your kids' future, right? So college is expensive long term. But let's go deeper again. Why stop over here? Why is college expensive? Give me like two reasons.
Is it basically on this?
It lands
Based
them a
on
job.
what kind of job you get, right?
Sure. No, but why is college inherently expensive? Like if you go to private schools, why is college expensive?
Facilities and
Infrastructure, absolutely, right? They literally have labs, they have grounds, they have auditoriums, they have GJB, right? All of which is expensive and requires you to charge more. But why are they also expensive? What's another reason? Like at least the non-government colleges are expensive.
good teachers.
That's all part of the infrastructure facilities.
Helps you get a job.
They have an incentive to make profit, right? Which means even if it could be a bit cheaper, they want to make money, right? They're all profit driven unless you're in IIT, which is difficult. And so it's likely that you're sending your kid to a private college where they will charge a bit more, thereby you having to pay even more. So you're doing very well. The college is expensive because of both infrastructure but also money. So even if they take down infrastructure, you still have money to grow up, or vice versa. Right? So giving multiple reasons and mechanisms makes your point stronger. So you've proven now that college is expensive by your extracurricular activities and all those things, books, and why school is expensive. So you've proven along multiple years of the child's life why you spend so much money on education. Right? Are you with me? Yeah. Very simple stuff, right? Not difficult to prove. But already you've given an of where idea in the adult's mind that hey, I'm spending tons of money for literally I'm robbing, I hope that's fine. Yeah. On education. Someone else mentioned healthcare. Let's try healthcare. And that's why I want to be really illustrative over here because healthcare is easy to be illustrative. Healthcare. Right?
What about shelter and food?
Sure, but then so you can say that I have to spend money on shelter anyways for myself.
Like clothes, like food,
Again, absolutely. Again, things you can mention, right?
grocery.
So all those things are expenses that you can talk about. I'm picking two big ones because these are things you have to spend long term and deeply on, right? You could maybe like brush away things like what do you call it? Like food and stuff. But this is like big expenses, right? So let's get into healthcare. Why is healthcare expensive? Give me one reason and then go to the business mechanisms for that. When I say reasons, I mean why, and mechanisms is how. Okay. So What's a reason healthcare is expensive?
Can we tell same thing with private hospital and government hospitals?
You could, but why will I go to the hospital in the first place?
That's it.
So kids are regularly sick, correct? So you have regular conditions. You have regular visits to the doctor, right? Why? That's your mechanisms.
Bad immunity.
Sorry.
Bad immunity.
Bad immunity, absolutely, yeah. Bad immunity, right? Kids have incredible immunity, right? They have developing immunities. But secondly, kids are
Super.
well, that last time.
No.
Oh, not kids are fucking stupid, right? No, just stupid, not. They're idiots. Huh?
Student does not reduce the age.
Yeah, it doesn't. Otherwise, that is by you exhibit A, exhibit B, right?
Okay.
Exhibit C also, in fact, why not? Right? So, let's be illustrative. Here's how you should paint a picture. Hey, there are kids go regularly to the doctor. This looks like you taking your kid to the doctor every week, and you may be skipping work regularly to go take them to the doctor because they are sick regularly because they are still developing immunities. And also, kids are stupid. This was like kids eating mud, for example, and falling sick, and so or like running around like idiots in the playground and hitting their head on a slide and getting hurt, and therefore you take them to the doctor, right? But so you've proven why regular visits are possible. But so what? What if I just didn't take them to the doctor? Why should I take them to the doctor?
Without me.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. You hopefully love them, right? But secondly, what if I didn't love them? Why would I still take them to the doctor?
So you
It's a duty, right? It's literally fear. Because if I didn't take my kid to the doctor and the kid was seen by someone else with like a big swollen head because he ran into a slide, or that he like his face was blue because he ate mud, right? And you didn't solve the problem, your neighbors or your teachers will probably report you and you'll be sent to what's called jail, right? So, and prison is not a fun place to be in because you get stabbed in prison. And so you don't want to go to prison, right? So, and you like freedom, hopefully. So, I've proved it extensively now. My kids are likely to go to the doctor regularly because of them having weak immunities, them being stupid. But why you'll definitely take them to the doctor because of either love or fear or both, right? So you're obligated to, but also hopefully want to take them to the doctor, right? So that's one mechanism, one reason plus mechanism. So you identified the rule and also given multiple reasons or mechanisms. Quite true. Why is healthcare expensive, right?
Not just to the doctor, even at home, like we can do.
Sure, that's one way. But okay, let's go further. Why else do you go to the hospital other than falling sick? Absolutely, right? You have necessary reasons to do that. So look like, as you said, vaccinations, checkups, right? Maybe some kind of like booster, whatever. All this.
Those are really very expensive, right?
If you're in the US, it's $600
Really?
per visit. And so in India, you're lucky to have cheap healthcare. But unless you have insurance in Europe and US and lots of parts of the world, healthcare is very expensive. And if you're a middle class family, it can, even if it isn't like unbearable, you still have to pay a lot of money and tax your budget, right? So what is less money? It's not no money, it's less money. And it's obviously taking away money from your your savings or whatever. And you also have things like transport. It's like me having to drive to the doctor. It's like me having to spend time at the doctor. And if I'm getting paid by the hour, like most people, I'm getting paid less. So which means not only is my expenses increasing, my income is reducing. Right? So it's a double whammy. I'm getting screwed from both sides. Right? Front and back. Which means that why are you laughing now? I'm being illustrative. So essentially you have regular necessary visits that you cannot ignore and avoid, which take away your time but also take away your money. Right? And and so essentially you have insurance costs, obligatory costs, so on and so forth, right? And so what? So you've proven why healthcare is expensive and why you will pay this money. What is the consequence? What's the final point you return to the edge? So I told the edge why is healthcare expensive and why you will do it. You should end by saying this. This means that healthcare is expensive, frequent, and necessary. Which means I will do it, I'll keep doing it regularly, and I'll keep paying a lot of money. So you proved all of this, concluded by saying, see, what have I proved to you? I've proved that healthcare is something which I will keep paying for necessarily and definitely I won't not do it. And I'll keep doing a lot because kids have all of those things, right? Stupid, bad English, so on and so forth, right? And so, what's the impact? Yes, I mean, oh no, I'm not going to jump. Sorry. The point is that they cost a lot of money, right? The link we're trying to prove. So notice that we spent a considerable amount of time proving one link. Why? Kids cost a lot of money. This will take you at least 2 minutes of your speech, 3 minutes of your speech. But you proved it so well that they would spend maybe 4 5 minutes taking down that they don't cost money. It takes a lot of work. And if they spend so much time on taking you down, they get less time to think about their own case. Absolutely. Right? So you've proved now. What happened? No, go ahead. Tell me. Please say it. Yeah, kids cost a lot of money. What's wrong with that?
Cheaper kids?
No, the question is, are you willing to pay that amount of money? That's what offers to prove that it's worth the money. That even if they cost $1 million, the kids are so worth it that I will pay for them. Hopefully, your parents believe that, right? So you've proven this. Are we clear? I mean, any questions before we move to the next step? None. Damn. Either you're like are really smart, or I'm really good, or hopefully both. But anyways, right? What's the next link?
Long term.
Long term, right? What's that? Right. So they cost money long term. So why does this matter? Right? So why do they cost money long term? It's very simple to prove actually.
It stays
Sorry?
it stays
Exactly. You can't kill the kid, right? So unfortunately, treatment is either illegal. And so if you realize you made a bad mistake, you should have to deal with it for the next at least 18 years of your life, unless you send them to a labor camp, which is unlikely, right? Which means that till the time they can support themselves, which in US was like 18, in India maybe a few 20s, as evidenced by people like me, who still live off my parents, you essentially have to pay them till that age, which means you're spending for maybe 2 decades of time a lot of money. So you've already proven why it's frequent, expensive, necessary. Now you prove that happens over a long time scale. This looks like me having to pay for my kids' nursery, LKG, primary school, secondary school, college, right? All the way. Looks like me maybe having to buy them their first car. Looks like me having to pay them for their food, their clothes, their groceries, right? This is all the ones you mentioned. It's all long-term expenses that are again necessary, frequent, and oftentimes expensive, right? So you're proving longer. Not so difficult to prove. You can easily prove it, right? I hope that's provable, right? I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'm going to focus on the next thing, all right? But finally, here's the important part, which, as you said, they'll definitely come us. They can't or won't support you later, right? Yeah. Okay. Why? Why won't they support you later? There's no more happening as well.
That's happening.
Yeah, I'm not with them.
The T and Veda will be the game that give us 6 people. Yeah, 6 and 1 balanced.
All right.
Good. See.
Raise my hand up, John. All
Well,
right. See you. Bye bye. Okay. Give me reasons. I don't want to keep talking. Correct. So if you didn't raise them very well, they probably self will pass on. Right? It's
they
true.
have their own kids.
Sorry?
Have their own kids.
They have their own kids or they have their own lives. Absolutely. Right? This is part of the cannot thing. So let's try and prove this, right? Because this is a bit more difficult to prove, but also more important. Here's where the motion comes into play. Remember, I said we're dealing with the what kind of family? Middle class. Right. So it's not they're not a rich family. They don't have like one big inheritance that they can just send away. They are middle class.
But they think like that they're taking care of the parents is also like expensive.
Absolutely, right? You have to maybe take care of your own parents, right? That's number one. Secondly, the economy sucks for middle class people, right? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class gets stuck in more debt, right? What does debt look like? Be illustrative. Why do you have debt as a middle class person? What do you take on loans and debt for?
Home.
Education,
Education,
house.
maybe house, obviously house, right? Car, right?
And
Insurance.
Health, absolutely. If you don't have insurance, you're screwed. You need health, right? Maybe if you live in a consumerist world, we maybe buy a TV.
Status.
Huh?
Status.
All those, yeah, status symbols, absolutely. Status symbols is a very good one. Thank you. Lovely, right? Things to maintain my coolness, right? Maybe cool shoes, whatever. This means that I have multiple expenses that I have to take care of, right? So your kids probably when they become, you can say that maybe kids when they're in their 20s care more about status than if you're a bit wiser and you're 50. And so you're likely to spend more on things like status symbols. But you also maybe want to buy a home quickly or a car quickly. And so you take a loan and do all of that. Which means kids, their jobs suck, number one, because economy sucks. But they also have lots of expenses. So jobs, bad, expenses, more. Right? Which means that what's the result of this? That the kids themselves have
No money.
yes, less money or no money, right? Perfect. Which means that even if they wanted to, even if you raise them well and they loved you for whatever reason, right? Because they can't have money, if they don't have money, they cannot support you. So give more reasons for this. You can talk about economy sucking, they're not having jobs, expenses, about how maybe they have kids of their own. So you can rely on your own chain. Right? You prove, for example, that kids cost a lot of money. And since they themselves have kids, they again have to pay for their own kids, which means they again have less money. So you're proving very comprehensively that even if they really wanted to support that, because often definitely say, no, no. At least in India, there are values like family is everything. You will support them. You can maybe run that in US, there's no expectation for you to support your parents, right? But in India and like Asia, you definitely be expected to do so because they are like literal deities who give birth to you. But you can't give offerings to God if you don't have any money to offer, right? In this case, God being parents. And so they can't support you, right? So you've proven now how kids cost a ton of money, how they cost money long term, and they cannot support you. So even so, especially even if you treat kids as an investment and you hope for some kind of return on investment (ROI), the ROI is likely to be negative because you spend so much money and you're fucked. Or oh, you're screwed. You're in a bad place. Brother, I really need to stop swearing around. Yeah, just no publish this workshop, bro. Or like put on like a restricted access or something. Like, yeah, but anyways, right? And so the point is they don't support you, even if they wanted to. But furthermore, you can give extra reasoning, right? The fact that, oh, I'm so sorry, forgot long term. What is place long term important? Long term is important because the fact that it costed long term amounts of money meant that you didn't save yourself, right? And so essentially, I don't have any sort of investments in stocks. I don't have like a corpus of money, like maybe a crore that I can save my retirement. I don't have a nest egg essentially, right? I'm probably even maybe in debt. But furthermore, my career is slightly worse off because I spent so much time raising my kids if I was a decent parent, right? And you and all of this means that I don't have money myself in the long term, right? And so even if I spend more when I didn't have kids, the fact that I wasn't obligated to spend more means I could have at least saved some money and therefore had all these things hopefully, right? But because I was forced to spend when I had kids, I definitely don't have money in the long term. I forgot to prove this. I'm so sorry, but to prove how you don't have money in the long, and maybe because now by the time your kids leave home, you're maybe 50 years old, and soon you have to switch your career, and you're like in a job maybe that's not paying you very well, and you've not earned saved enough money or put enough investments, and you're just completely broke, right? And essentially, you then say that once you're broke, the final people who you hope would support you and treat it as your investment, can't, even if they want to, right? And this means that,
There's no guarantee that they'll get a job in the first place.
absolutely.
So they can still.
Maybe they're like they finish college, and because there's a recession going on, they can't get placed, and so they don't have a job. So, sorry,
They still depend on
they still depend on you. So you have further expenses, and they can't even pay you back, right? So again, very great reasons all of you, right? So you've proven all these points very well. I think we've proven them scientifically well, right? More than we usually do in normal debates. Is that my phone? Oh, right? So wait, any doubts? And so finally, then you say that now I don't have any money. Now you've proven why this is true. You've given multiple links. Why is that important? Why is money important? Survival. We live in again a capitalist world wherein anything you need, from even basic needs like food and shelter, because we are not a socialist place, means that you need to spend for even food and shelter. And if you don't, you become a homeless person who doesn't have food and you starve to death, right? Or you die of cold. So on and so forth. Winter's coming, GG well to him, right? So essentially, you need money for basic stuff. You need money for healthcare yourself because you're getting old. If you don't have money, you're probably getting like sick more and you can't go to the doctor anymore because you don't have money. And so you're completely screwed. The moment I have like a small heart issue, I don't have money for an operation. And I post just like, except for that, I'm going to die in the next year. And I cry, right? So you probably die, right? That's literally the worst outcome, right? But even if you don't die, the quality of your life just sucks so much, right? And the worst is you don't have food, shelter, and stuff. And the best case, maybe you can't afford a car anymore. You can't afford the comforts of life anymore. I can't go to restaurants and chill with my wife anymore, right? Which means that probably my relationship with her sucks now because she wants me to take her on a date, but I can't because I'm poor, right? So on and so forth, right? But you can also connect this to how likely the woman is the one who's going to maybe retire from her job and take care of the kids because of society's expectations. This comes in from the motherhood wala thingy, right? So it's like that the woman will have to like quit her job, meaning your money reduces further. Again, expenses reduce, income reduces more. Also, she doesn't get fulfillment, and so she's sad as well, right? There's so many harms you can draw. So it's very easy to prove how not having money completely screws you over, both as an individual and as a couple, right? And so you prove why it's a bad thing, right? And that itself will take you easily 10 minutes or so. And then in the remaining time, you just talk about why this is so important. Think about it. Okay, I'm going to quickly finish this. What were the solutions, right?
Or should
So,
we talk about anything else? Like we just the if, like the statement was not about money. Right? Like it was, kids are the motion was that kids are good
what
for
happens? Right. So,
So we just showed the factor was money.
right.
But there could be other factors. So
Right.
That could be. So we chose actively like how they chose to have it. We chose money as our harm, right? We would choose, for example, kids leave you with no social life, and you have then to prove through the same reasons. I suggest you try this as homework that if you want to, because it's not class, that here's why social life is so bad, and you prove the steps as we did, and then prove why not having social life is so terrible for you. Maybe I depend on my friends for solace, for enjoyment, for comfort, and at the point in time wherein I'm not meeting them anymore because kids take away so much time, my life sucks. I think money is a bit more impactful as a harm because it's a tangible harm. Like you'll feel not having money in your bank account, but essentially, social harm is a valid social a lack of social life is a valid harm to pick. There are so many harm to pick. I don't care about what harm you pick. That was the harm you pick is random. My goal over here is to show you how to prove this harm. In a later workshop, I'll tell you which is the best harm to pick. That's strategy. But here we are talking about building the wall. So imagine you have a ladder, and the ladder is the case you're building. First, you'll have to learn how to build the ladder. Then you find out which is the best wall to put the ladder against. That is strategy. But right now, the goal is building a ladder. So this is how you build the ladder. Am I clear? Sorry.
should we pick only one fact? Like this.
I would suggest when you're starting out in debating in the first 2 months or so, don't pick multiple. Just pick one and prove it like how we proved it today so well. And you'll notice that you 7 minutes pakka won't be enough. If you do less than 7 minutes, I'll buy you a Theo Brahma brownies. Right? So it's not easy to do in less than 7 minutes. It's difficult. I think Sudiksha, she did this. We did the workshop on Monday. She tried today and she spent the energy just describing the first step. That's how much time she spent. So it takes effort to be efficient. But at least you'll get moving in the right direction, right? Yeah, you had a question. Sorry. She asked. Okay. Okay, cool. But yeah, that's the obvious question to ask. Unfortunately, this is not. Don't worry too much about picking the right harm. That comes later. Just pick one harm, stick to it. As I said, don't like go into multiple branches. Pick one harm and prove it bloody well, and you probably will win. Right? Now that we've done this, let's go to solutions. So, what are solution means? Number one, that
We don't have kids.
you don't have kids, right? No kids. Obviously, it's very easy to prove, right? So, you don't have a cost. You can say that, this is again very easy. You can say that I don't have kids, so none of them is like care, education, food, groceries are a big cost. But I obviously will have costs like traveling, partying with friends, right? Dates, so on and so forth. But all this means that, but it's likely that these aren't frequent, or even they are frequent, they aren't expensive, and I'm not obligated to go and do it. I can choose not to go on a vacation this year. I can choose not to spend time like with friends going out. But I do have to I cannot not choose take care of my kid. So there's no compulsion for you to spend as much or as regularly. But thirdly, long term. You can talk about how even if I save a bit long term, like every month I just put like maybe 5% of my salary into an SIP and regularly keep saving money, it's likely that then I save money long term and can like I then have like maybe a crore by the time I'm 50 years old. I can then just party for the last 20 years of my life, live life, GG well played, right? And so therefore you obviously have more money. Right? So once you prove the problem, the solution is usually very easy to prove. You just have to prove the opposite. I hope this makes sense. So you prove a problem solution. Now that you've done this, you can guarantee talk about why money is so less for sure and why that's a bad thing. In a future workshop, I'll talk about how then you do what's one of my favorite things, what's so important, which is called weighing. Right? Anyone wants to guess what this is? Weigh the pros and what is more important? Win the pros and cons, right? Perfect. So what's the obvious thing of will run like money on their side? What's their main benefit of kids? Why do people have kids?
Joy.
Joy, fulfillment, absolutely. Right? You say that kids are so goddamn fulfilling, they are worth spending a million on, right? So I'm like, oh my god, I love my kids so much. They give me a unique, specific biological fulfillment because of things like hormones, like oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin. And nothing else in the world, whether it be work or friends or even like a partner, can give me as much happiness as really creating life and raising life, right? It's like having fun students like you are, but on a much better level because I literally made the students and then taught them, right? It's like literally having programmable biological computers who I can like raise and make in my own image, right? Like what would you want? It's clay you can mold that's living, right? So freaking awesome things that they are. It's fulfilling, right? Why? So then you have to prove why money is so much more important that even if they are fulfilling, it's not worth the fulfillment. Lose your two ways. You say that there are other sources of fulfillment like friends, partner.
Sure. Just because eventually when you have to spend so much, you realize that the fulfillment
Very
will
good,
take
right?
time.
So number one, you talk about how fulfillment could be symmetric, right? It's the same. That fulfillment is more or less like equivalent, even if I have to don't have to, because I can realize the fulfillment from my work, from my partner, from my friends, from traveling, etc. But then you do what's called the even if. This is super important. You say that, okay, sure, let's believe that fulfillment is more on the other side. So me saying that fulfillment is same is what's called a rebuttal. I'm destroying their argument of fulfillment. So then you say let's imagine my rebuttal didn't work. Then you get into what's called way. You say that, sure, fulfillment is better on my side. But here's why money matters more. Because firstly, I spent so much money on these kids that I cannot have the life I want for myself. It was like me having to sacrifice the status symbols that I want to buy. So it was like me having to spend less time with my friend. It was like me not being able to spend time with my partner. It was like me essentially, like in the short term, I lose so much things that I want to have. But more importantly, in the long term, and my kids do leave me because they definitely will leave me by the time they're 18 or 22 years old, right? I then have no one else to get fulfillment from anyways. Fulfillment is not a guaranteed long term thing, right? Whereas even if I'm 70 years old, I can travel to the US and like party in Las Vegas, but I cannot party with my kids anymore once they're 18 because they have their own lives to live. But more importantly, once I'm 50, as I proved earlier, there's no ROI because the kids won't support me and cannot support me. And so I'm literally broke and sad and maybe homeless and die, right? And so all this fulfillment was for nothing because I'm a sad old man just waiting to die filled with regret, right? And so here's why money is so important that fulfillment is not equal to it. So that's way. So that what's special about weighing is oftentimes like the ads maybe won't believe your record of fulfillment being equal because maybe the op proves that fulfillment is so special for kids that it's not equal. But so you say that okay, sure, maybe that's uniquely fulfilling, but even then this matters so much more, and you say it's more important as she said, and you weigh the pro over the con, and you win. So so the ideal way you should do this is PM focuses on your steps and burdens and like really proves your argument. Obviously, because it's not easy to do, CPM should be a very active listener. So here's what people keep asking. They're like, bro, I should split my case, right? Like if I think of some prep time, half an hour some prep time, and I have like 2 pages of material, lot of people do because they want to speak for long. They're like, bro, you take 1 page, I'll take 1 page. Please never do this. It's a cardinal sin. Your ideal scenario is the PM says everything. It makes your job the easiest job in the world, right? Because then all you have to do is listen very actively to what he's saying and also what Elo is saying. Then you do three things. As BPM, you fill in the gaps. So maybe, for example, he told you that education is expensive, but he didn't prove to you well enough that it's frequent, expensive, and pakka you have an obligation to do it. So then maybe you fill in those gaps. You say that, okay, maybe my PM proved to you that education is something which you will definitely spend regularly, or healthcare is something you should definitely spend regularly on, and it's expensive. But maybe it didn't prove to you why I will definitely do it and I won't ignore the cost. Then you give the reasons as to why parents maybe care about their kids and they fear the government, and so they definitely do that, right? So you're filling in the mechanisms. You're listening to what they're saying, saying, oh, they didn't mention this gap. So you identify the gaps in the PM speech and you fill them in with your hows and whys, right? So imagine you're building the wall and your PM lay the bricks. Maybe they miss cement in certain gaps. The cement being these mechanisms, right? So you're filling these mechanisms by adding in your own cement. Make sense? Once you do that, you also then listen to the Elo speech. This is so messy, I'm sorry for once it is. You listen to Elo and you talk about, and then you see that, there are certain gaps in his case that he's not filled in. I mean, destroys that, and you destroy his case. This is rebuttals. And thirdly, maybe realize that the PM proved healthcare so well, but he didn't prove education. We didn't even mention education. So you do what's called extensions, and you extend a new argument. You lay new bricks and add cement in between those bricks. So you're doing rebuttals, rebuilding, and extensions, right? RER, RRE, ERR, whatever. Remember how you want that. Once you've done this, you'll find that this is easily 7 minutes of time. Because you're destroying their case, rebuilding your case, and making it bigger. Right? Which is your choice. If the LO is a very strong speech, focus on rebuttals first. Because you don't focus on it, their case still stands. So destroy it. If they're weak as frick, focus on rebuilding your case and adding new one. If it's equal, maybe split the time equally. Again, it's all about adapting on the spot. Debate is all about adapting. All this stuff is a structure. You have to change the structure according to the debate you are in, right? So this comes again with practice and listening a lot, being very questioning about what they're saying and saying, are they saying this? Are they saying this? Is there something worth countering? Something worth I shouldn't be spending a lot of time on, right? For example, if some opposition for some reason focus on a lot of you saying that you will have kids, which is a very stupid thing to focus on. There's not much reason to spend that countering. You'll be like, obviously we'll have kids because emotion is really about us having kids or not having kids. Everything outside is BS. Please discard their material. If all it will the Ash, and the Ash will probably believe you, hopefully. Right? So the point being that adjust the ratio based on what your first two speakers said. So automatically I guarantee you will give you minimum 7 minutes of speech, if not 10, 12 minutes. And then finally Whip comes in and does all the way. So Whip is like a biased adjudicator. He listens to the debate. So generally when I whip, I don't write anything prep time. I just be feeding my DPM and PM matter, especially my PM, and I won't write anything. And notice my speeches will get better because I then only listen to the debate, and whatever's happening in the debate, I then write down. So, if I have a piece of paper, I'll split it into half and say, here's what the upside, here's what offside. And then I identify where are these clashes. Now, I'm almost done. So, if you look over here, what are the clashes in the debate? Where are we fighting? We're fighting on whether kids are expensive, whether they're long-term expensive, and whether they won't support you or can support you. Those are the most critical steps. Normally realize at a certain point of fight. No. No. See, I'm cool, bro. That's the rules. Anyways, so this means that the more you do the steps and the burdens, you realize that okay, see, they obviously fight me on this, and so there's bound to be a fight, right? So as if you already have a clear idea of how the debate is going to progress, and then you keep listening and you note down what these fights are. These are called clashes, right, or contentions. These are places where op and PM or op and government arguing and disagreeing. Like it's like kids existing are things you don't disagree on, right? Those are opposite things you agree on. The question is whether kids cost a lot of money or are they worth the money, right? So those points of disagreement. You find a point of disagreement. And then you say, see, here's what we said. So you mention the idea that kids are frequently expensive, intensely expensive, and compulsively expensive. Here's what they said. You mentioned like a brief phrase to highlight what they said. And then you say, here's what they said is not true. So you're doing rebuttals. In case they didn't do it, I could. You're rebuilding what I'm not cool anymore. You're rebuilding what we'll do online debate now. You're rebuilding what you said because DLO, if he's smart, would have countered DPM and again destroyed some of what he said. Again, rebuild it. He would have built his own case, destroy it, and then the most important as well, even if you don't do these things, just wait. You're like, here's why what we said is so much more important than what they said. Even if this is true, here's why this is more true or more important. Right? So you prove it using things like so that's the challenge, and that's why you win. So let's wait. I'll go deeper into it next time. But here's how you build a case as PM and DPM. Right? Cool. If you have questions, please text me because we have to leave. But that's essentially what our goal is. I'll try the recording as well in case you want to leave. Send the documents I made as well. But yeah, that's pretty much. Any questions that you want to ask immediately? Okay.